Welcome to a new week on Monday morning here on Breakfast Central. Thank you very much to our viewers here in Nigeria, online, and everywhere across the continent. It's a pleasure having you join us, and we hope that it's going to be a very, very interesting week. As always, we have the next 2 hours to discuss some of the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria. I am Usaugi Ogbonwan.
And I am Olive Emodi. Congratulations to the winners in AFCON and those teams that have been playing well. Our thoughts and our prayers are with those who have been crying tears of agony, and you know those who are joining the lions in the jungle. I am Olive Emodi, and we have some big stories to look at this morning in the sporting world as well as with politics. ECOWAS is shaking, it seems, but that's not the conversation for now. Let's bring in Adebola Adedugba, who brings us breakfast headlines. Good morning, Adebola.
Good morning, Osage and Olive. Yes, congratulations to the Super Eagles. We're looking forward to winning this competition. Hopefully, we'll trash Angola, in our next game, hopefully.
Like, what is it about, I don't know, Osage, maybe you can tell me, what is it about football that makes them will? I watched the Guinea and Equatorial Guinea game, and yes, it was a very narrow win, really narrow, but seeing the men will, like the tears, it was, I was just like...
I think it's a very emotional sport, and everyone is, hoping to win the title, but at least if you don't win the title, let it show that you gave your absolute best, and so sometimes it could be really heartbreaking when you've given all you possibly, could, and, you eventually lose the game.
Does that not defeat the spirit of sportsmanship that we often speak about?
Everyone is trying to be a winner. It doesn't kill the spirit of sportsmanship. You are trying to win as much as your opponent is trying to win. So it will break your heart, regardless of, no matter how the story is, if you don't get to win the game, if you don't get to move to the next stage, you'll be heartbroken, and it's only natural. It's a human feeling.
Yes,
to feel that.
I think I agree with Osage. I mean, it's a way of mourning or licking your wounds. Having suffered a loss. Yes, you still congratulate the winner at the end of the day, but then that moment, that time, I mean, you feel sorry, losing the game, you've been looking forward to the game, making preparations for it, and then looking forward to winning. So yeah.
Also knowing that their country's media team can be in a bus, or be waiting for them and telling them they're not going to pass until they speak with them, just like they did with Ghana.
Well, that was with Ghana. But also just to mention, one thing that also puts a lot of people on the edge is, for example, after the Cameroon game, the banter online. I don't think I've seen it that bad.
My goodness.
In a while.
And Nigerians need to chill.
Yeah, I remember, I was saying to Itwa, that in maybe like early 2000s, there was proper rivalry between the Super Eagles and Ghana, or Super Eagles and Senegal or Cote d'Ivoire, or Cameroon back then. Actually, it was Cameroon or Ghana. The rivalry was top-notch. It was crazy. And it seems that we have brought it back in this time because the banter online.
They were going into Cameroon's Twitter spaces.
It was completely insane. It was fun. And it shows also the fun part of the game. As much as, it's tough, but it's also fun. DSTV Nigeria put out one of the most hilarious
I saw it we've seen. So in the jungle.
it was pretty interesting. But we have an interesting week. There's still politics to discuss. Nigeria and, of course, the other parts of the continent. ECOWAS is in the news this morning. But let's share with you what our top stories are, and of course move into breakfast headlines with Adebola Adedugba.
Dave Umahi debunks alleged procurement violations. This is, of course, reacting to Tracka's budget update.
Yeah, and of course, across the continent, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso quit ECOWAS regional bloc.
So many questions to ask there. And as we do every morning on Which Way Nigeria, today we're saying a call on President Tinubu to return.
Sad story, of course, from Lagos to Delta State. Sylvester Oromoni's body finally laid to rest.
And as we do every morning, we bring you the newspaper front pages. Please stay with us this morning on Breakfast Central. And now let's bring you breakfast headlines with Adebola Adedugba.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines here on News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedugba. The Economic Community of West African States has reacted to the collective withdrawal of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger from the bloc. The military juntas of the three countries, in an announcement made on Sunday by the leaders of the three Sahel nations, comes amid escalating tensions following the overthrow of Niger's democratically elected government and ECOWAS' subsequent threat of military action if power was not transferred. And now to Nigeria, where the federal government of Nigeria has ordered an investigation into allegations of corruption against the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala. Ogala is accused of providing security for oil thieves and receiving huge sums in return against the federal government's touted war against oil thieves. A statement by the Director of Press in the Ministry of Information, Henshaw Ogibike, the Minister of State for Defense, Mohammed Bello Matawale, called for a thorough and impartial investigation to sustain the truth of the claims. And now to security matters. Nigeria's Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, has met with families and victims of the accidental airstrike that occurred on January 24, 2023, near Rukubi in Doma local government area of Nasarawa State. The Director of Public Relations and Information, Nigerian Air Force, Edward Gabot, disclosed these on Sunday in Abuja. The CAS expressed regret over the incident, saying the incident report showed that innocent civilians might have erroneously been killed or injured in the process. Nigeria's National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has declared an ex-beauty queen, Queen Oluwadamilola Aderinyoye, wanted for dealing in illicit drug activities. According to a statement released by Femi Babafemi, Director of Media and Advocacy at the NDLEA National Headquarters in Abuja, the suspect, who held the title of Miss Commonwealth Nigeria Culture in 2015-2016 and founder of the Queen Christmas Foundation, was declared wanted. The news continues in East Africa, where the head of Sudan's ruling Sovereign Council, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, started a two-day official visit to Algeria on Sunday for talks with Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. Algeria's state-run television aired footage of Tebboune while receiving al-Burhan at the El Maraja Presidential Palace in the capital, Algiers. No details were provided by the Algerian authority about the content of the talks between the two leaders. A statement by Sudan's Sovereign Council said al-Burhan's discussions in Algeria will cover bilateral relations and issues of mutual concern. In neighboring South Sudan, the National Bureau of Standards has disposed of expired and substandard products seized from different markets in Juba to ensure the protection of consumers. The Standard Authority conducted a successful inspection of Malakia, Konyoyo, Custom Market, Yei Road, and some hotels and supermarkets in December last to purposely check on the validity of products, which led to the confiscation of several expired products, including beverage, food items, lubricants, engine oil, and other items. Uganda has distanced itself from an opinion written by a Ugandan judge on the International Court of Justice, ICJ, dissenting from the panel's ruling in South Africa's genocide, a case against Israel, and said the remarks do not reflect Uganda's position. Julia Sebentinde was the only judge on the 17-member ICJ panel to vote against all 6 measures adopted by the court in a ruling ordering Israel to take action to prevent acts of genocide as it fights Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip. In South Africa, inmates are to register for voting from 30th January to 1st February, and the IEC has pleaded to the families of inmates to deliver identity documents to correctional centers. The IEC said it acknowledges that a member of offenders do not keep IDs in their possession, and family members are thus requested to make necessary arrangements by delivering identification cards.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. This morning's monologue is simply titled, "Come Back Home, Mr. President." Now, just yesterday, a short video went viral, over the weekend actually, a short video went viral on social media. It was a video of our president, along with a few others, including the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, all in France, watching the Super Eagles defeat the indomitable Lions of Cameroon. It showed Nuhu Ribadu taking a bow to greet President Tinubu and congratulate him as Nigeria scored. But I'm not sure if the president is, of course, maybe the one that gave the assist to Lookman, but it was definitely a happy moment there in France. Now, while that was going on, the Naira was also continuing its race much faster than Victor Osimhen, racing towards 1,500 Naira to the dollar. While that was going on in France, Nigerians, of course, were going to the marketplace to face the realities of the cost of living here in Nigeria. Families were thinking about how to manage the January salary with a minimum wage of 30,000 Naira, which is roughly about $20 a month. While the president was in France with his NSA dressed very, very casually like people who truly were on holiday, Nigerians are still held in captivity. Bandits are still running wild in different parts of the country, with innocent citizens pleading for money to pay ransom and get their loved ones back home from kidnappers. While the president was in France on holiday, Nigerian citizens in Plateau State are still living in fear and crying for justice. While Mr. President was holidaying in France, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali all left ECOWAS, where the Nigerian president is currently the head of ECOWAS. Nigerians still don't have proper health care or insurance. Nigeria still has epileptic power supply. Over the weekend also, about 50% of poultry farmers reportedly have closed shop. But don't worry, the president, of course, will come back sometime in the first week of February, according to reports. No specific dates, but sometime around the first week, we should expect him back. Now, I sometimes try to think about the mindset of the average Nigerian voter. At those specific moments when the elections are building up, when campaigning is going on across the nations, across the country rather, Nigerians are mostly saying to themselves, and I'm sure everyone will agree to this, that during that period, a lot of people are saying that this is a chance to see how maybe we can catch a breath and have some sense of a better country. This, is 4 years to maybe get it right this time. And that's the mindset of every Nigerian when the campaigns are going on, when the elections are building up. And then, I also then try to imagine at what point Nigerians maybe just accept that, well, once again, we may have gotten it wrong, and absolutely nothing will change in the next 4 years. Is it in the first few months? Is it right after the elections? Is it after the results are, declared? Imagine how heartbreaking it must be when everyone has said to themselves that this is, going to be the person who will define the pace of our country for the next 4 years. And then at some point, you accept it in your heart that maybe nothing will change. It's going to be a repeat of the same thing, the same failure of government for another 4 years. Come back home, Mr. President, is a faint cry from the heart of the average Nigerian, hoping that they can remind President Tinubu of his promises to attend to our problems as a nation. Now is not the time to be on holiday while Nigerians are struggling to survive till the next day. Now is not the time to be traveling just for any random reason when the country needs leadership. The country is ailing, and we currently need leadership more than ever. Our shores are battered by storms of uncertainty, and the ship of state seems adrift without its captain. The people in Nigeria yearn for a leader who can guide us through the challenges we face, a leader who understands the pulse of the nation. Mr. President, our economy is gasping for air. Small businesses, which of course are the lifeblood of our communities, are shutting down. Nigerians are adjusting and adjusting. Every week, there's some new adjustment you have to make as a Nigerian when you realize that, the exchange rate is gotten worse. Inflation seems to be getting worse. The things that you could afford 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you can no longer afford them. And these are the economic realities that every Nigerian needs to adjust to. So, Mr. President, as you holiday in the city of love, France, Nigerians are hoping that you realize how much they need leadership in these times. There's many Nigerians that would not survive this level of hardship for the next 4 years, and they truly await your return. So again, come back home, Mr. President.
Very well said there. We are, of course, waiting for the president to return and put things here in order in this country. Great job, Osalgi, and we hope to be able to see certain kind of changes in Nigeria. Away from that to some further sad news, Breakfast Central continues this morning with reports that the body of late Sylvester Oromoni Jr., who reportedly died on the 30th of November 2021 at a private hospital in Warri Delta after alleged health complications at Owen College, Lagos, has finally been buried at Ogbejo, Delta State, South Nigeria. News Central's Austin Azu, who covered the funeral rites, reports that father of the late 12-year-old boy vowed to get justice for his dead son.
Early at 7 a.m. on Saturday, sympathizers and guests have converged on the residence of Sylvester Romani Sr. in Warri, Delta State, to accompany him to Brian's Hospital, where the body of his late son Sylvester Romani Jr. been kept for 2 years. The remains of late Sylvester Romani Jr. was, however, conveyed in a motorcade, moved through some major roads before arriving the Warri Club jetty for onward movement to his hometown, Ogbujo. At the funeral service, the priest described late Sylvester Romani Jr. as having a philanthropic spirit in him helped influence the payment of school fees for his schoolmates and house rent for teachers. Prominent Nigeria lawyer and human rights activist Femi Falana, SAN, who eulogized late Oromoni Jr., urged parents not just to see the death of their children as God's ways often, but to always investigate the cause of their death, irrespective of the circumstances.
Very soon, between now and April, the coroner that conducted the inquest will come out with his findings, and we're very sure that justice will be done.
Father of the deceased, Oromoni Sr., was optimistic of getting justice despite the 2 years of investigating the circumstances that led to his son's death.
Oh, I want Nigerians to know that this boy did not die natural death. They brutalized him, they poisoned him. So it's not a natural death. That's what I want Nigerians to know. When he died on the 30th of November, 2021, I saw the boy and I promised him I'm going to fight justice for him for 30 years if God keeps me alive. 2 years and 2 months gone. The reason I decided to bury him now, because I've gotten the record of proceedings from the courts. I know that I can proceed from there. No matter the decision of this coroner inquest, I will still proceed from there. I've gotten the record of proceedings. That's prompted me to bury him now.
Late Sylvester Oromoni Jr., popularly known as Daddy, was born on the 4th of December 2009 and passed on 30th of November 2021 after alleged health complications at Donwen College, Lagos. In Warri for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
Nothing really breaks my heart, like stories like this. We're talking about this off camera, and I was saying how really sad this story makes me. Sad because they haven't gotten justice yet. Every life has returned to normal. And this is not the only school we've seen injustice happen to its students, where it seems that life continues for everybody else. Everyone has moved on. Everybody was making a lot of noise, and rightfully so, about Sylvester. But after a while, everything settles. The family is still dealing with the pain and the hurt. And there's a certain pain that you get from knowing that not only did you lose this person at their prime, I can't even say if it was, I can't even call that his prime, losing him at a young age, but knowing that you didn't get closure from his death, you didn't get to the root of his death. It's a pain that I don't know any parent will ever be able to get over.
Yeah, no parent wants to bury their child, regardless of what age. Even parents who are 90 don't want to bury a 60-year-old. So there's that level of pain, But in response to how it seems like everyone has moved on, I think there's the part where Nigerians feel very defeated. When these things happen, when they know that they've given everything for this cause, but the people in positions of power, the government institutions, the structures that should make these things possible just fail you. And when that happens, you feel defeated. And I know that this is not the first time. The people who have suffered in many other ways, who are victims of one level of injustice or the other, that the system once again disappointed, they also feel the same way. It's sad, and I can see the pain in his father's eyes.
Yes.
He must have cried a million tears. But of course, the painful part, of course, is that death is final, and you can't fix it. You can't bring him back, unfortunately. Will he continue to pursue, justice? He says that he will, and that's, I feel, is what important. In honor of his son, I feel he should. I saw someone in response to this story, tweet about how Nigeria seems to be an inherently wicked place, because it's, it seems to be the only place where these type of things can happen, to average Nigerian citizens, and that's it. That's the end, and it's, of course, it's not trying to. I'm hoping, that, I don't also create, the false narrative concerning, the details of the case. I'm hoping, that he's able to, you do whatever is necessary, go to court if he has to go back to court, sue if he has to sue again, and, find some justice because, Sylvester died a very, very, very unfortunate and unexpected death. And I mean, the family deserves, some
They
justice
deserve
somehow.
better. It's not just, Sylvester. It's Sylvester. It's the little girl whose name I don't seem to remember now that was electrocuted
Yeah,
at
I remember that story also.
Yeah, at the sports field.
There has to be, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There has to be some level of accountability that schools give to these kids and to their parents.
I mean, the moment you come and drop your child with a school, the moment you registered your child with a school, that school has the responsibility to guarantee the safety, security, and protection of that
Absolutely.
child, physically, emotionally, and mentally.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that I feel is, or one of the things that I feel is lacking in our society, the part where the Nigerian life doesn't seem to be held, with that much value. And that's why when these things happen, it seemingly is easy for us to not hold anybody accountable and just advise the family to move on. And that's mostly what happens. It's only in cases that go very, 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 very public, that there's almost no escape route. That maybe, we can say that.
And even when it goes public, there's still no guarantee. I mean, this case was as public as it gets.
Yeah.
There's still no guarantee that it will get to the finish that the justice that the family wants or deserves.
I wanted to balance, that by, with referring to those cases of sexual assault, where,
right.
they've been also sentenced to jail. But the point is, we don't have that level of accountability to the Nigerian life. And that's why when schools fail to protect kids, even if you want to call it an accident, but you failed to protect this child, you failed to ensure that the child was in a safe environment, the school should be held accountable. They should somehow, some way be held to account. But we don't see that. And it's very, very painful. So rest in peace to Sylvester. And of course, our hearts go out to the family. We hope that, of course, the father is able to find the justice that he seeks. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we continue conversations here this morning on Breakfast Central. Welcome once again. Now, 3 military-led West African nations, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, have announced their immediate withdrawal from regional bloc ECOWAS, accusing the body of becoming a threat to its members. The 3 countries accuse the regional body of failing to support their fight against terrorism and insecurity while imposing illegal, illegitimate, inhumane, and irresponsible sanctions. They added that ECOWAS, under the influence of foreign powers, is betraying its founding principles.
Recall that all 3 were suspended from ECOWAS, with Niger and Mali facing heavy sanctions. Following the move, the countries have hardened their positions in recent months and joined forces in an alliance of Sahel states. To further discuss this development, we're joined by Dr. Feyi Ogunade, Regional Organized Crime Observatory Coordinator, West Africa. Good morning, Dr. Ogunade. Thank you very much for joining us. I think the first question is to ask if this exit from ECOWAS if it stands, because we did see a report that expressed that for any member states to exit ECOWAS, that they would need 1 year notice, and for that 1 year duration, they will abide by the rules and regulations of ECOWAS. So how exactly do these 3 countries plan to navigate this?
The question is, I don't really know, because I don't know. I mean, and no one knows. It's a very fair question, but I think I see it because even when you're exiting an international organization like ECOWAS, you must give notice, as you rightly have pointed out. And since ECOWAS have not received that particular notice, we are all, as political observers, we are all looking and watching and seeing how the game will play out. So I don't know, but I don't think anyone actually knows the full answer to that particular question. Because as you rightly pointed out, in my view, I was speaking with another broadcaster yesterday, and I was mentioning the fact that even if when you're withdrawing, what does that even mean for ECOWAS? Because you need to stipulate and fulfill certain requirements, and they have just not done it. You just cannot just exit out of the door. When you are joining international organizations like ECOWAS or AU or the UN, there are certain conditions which you must fulfill. And if you don't fulfill it, you don't join. And when you are exiting, you also exit with certain conditions. So we are all, if you like, for want of a better word, we're all just waiting and watching to see how this will play out. But I suspect that this is political brinkmanship. Because as of yesterday, I heard that ECOWAS have not yet received official notice. But I now know that ECOWAS have received the official notice that these countries are withdrawing.
Yeah. All right. Let's also talk, about some of the things that they mentioned as their reason for leaving ECOWAS. They've said that it seems that the ECOWAS bloc rather, they didn't seem to be very supportive of them and their own goals as countries, and seem to be taking sides against them instead. So can you break that down and let us know what you feel about that? Bearing in mind, of course, the criticism that came when those coups occurred in these three countries and the steps that ECOWAS took, back then. Do they have legitimate, concerns for taking the steps to leave the group?
In my personal view, the answer is complete no. It's a cop-out, to put it very mildly. Again, as I mentioned, when you join international organizations, there are rules and regulations, and you must adhere to those rules and regulations, even if some of those rules and regulations are not written or printed out in law by the time you are joining. But in terms of customary international law, the practice of a particular community as well will hold sway. So in other words, if you join an organization and the organization frowns upon coup d'etat, even if it is not stated in black and white, but that is the practice, that is the practice, then you abide by the rules and regulations. Unfortunately, in this case, I've read all the statements all these three countries have made, and I don't find any of them quite substantive. ECOWAS did not support us in this, ECOWAS did not support us in that. What exactly did you want ECOWAS to do? I mean, over the last so many years, with all the irredentism in the Sahel region, ECOWAS has actually done a lot. So I say to you, and I put it to you, that it is a cop-out. It is an excuse that some of all of these countries are making that ECOWAS is not supporting. Mind you, last year, I can't remember the exact date, the ECOWAS court ruled that, and apparently I suspect this is all part of the jigsaw puzzles and why they probably have left. And the ECOWAS court ruled that military dictatorship in West Africa particularly has no place, has no legitimacy in West Africa. And those juntas cannot speak on behalf of their people. So I suspect that they're just moving the ante. And as I said, I believe this is political brinkmanship. For some reason, if I was the president of ECOWAS right now, I'll be concerned that my members are leaving. And 3 members have now left. So what do? I come back to the negotiating table. I come back and say, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's see whether we can have a transition to civilian rule and ease some of the pressures in terms of sanctions that they're presently suffering. So I have a feeling, my prediction will be that in the next few weeks, probably you will see ECOWAS coming to the table. Somehow they will have a negotiated settlement and to see how we can take the conversation forward.
Well, the current ECOWAS chairman is in France on holiday.
Pardon me?
Yes. So the current ECOWAS chairman is in France on holiday. So
I'm sure they
hopefully
won't
he's
like
back
that.
in time.
They're cutting off ties with France. They certainly won't like that.
Oh, well. Olive.
Okay.
You said the ECOWAS chairman is in France on holidays.
Yeah.
The current ECOWAS chairman is in France on holiday. So hopefully he's back in time to have these discussions.
Speaking about the current ECOWAS chairman, would you say that there was anything that he could have done, or that ECOWAS as a body could have done differently to prevent this from happening? We can see that this is a natural transition from the last coup that happened in Niger. So is there anything, could ECOWAS have maybe acted faster, acted differently, acted more compassionate, or taken a much stronger stance? Is there anything that they could have done differently to prevent us from getting to where we are with these 3 countries?
Again, I doubt whether ECOWAS could have acted differently. As a matter of fact, I am one of those people who thought ECOWAS did not do enough in terms of sanctioning them or in terms of removing, particularly the Niger coup, which is just across our backyard. I'm one of those persons, if you ask me, I would have thought, I know ECOWAS is not properly set up for military rule. I understand that. I know Niger is a massive country. So mounting a military expedition in a country like Niger is probably ill-advised. I understand all of that. And so probably there should have been more negotiated settlement in terms of discussing with them to see how far the transitional government could come, so that the civilian government will come probably in the next 1 year. So personally, I think ECOWAS had done a lot, and I don't see anything which ECOWAS could have done differently. As I said, I am one of those analysts who believe that probably ECOWAS did not go far enough in terms of removing the junta. So no, I don't think ECOWAS could have done any much more than they have done.
Yeah, but here's the problem. I'm sorry, but here's the problem with that. I think one of the narratives that was put out back then was how ECOWAS seemed to be betraying, the citizens of these countries by seemingly taking sides with, and of course, this might just be random theories, but seemingly taking sides with people who had ruined those countries. And when they try to, take their country back, you sanction them. These coups, the idea behind these coups, even if they, have all, pretty much had the same narrative whenever there's a coup, is of course trying to fix the country and take the country back from those who have held onto power for so long and whatnot. But in moments like that, when people of the country feel like they need to break away from those who have held them by the jugular for decades, the response, ECOWAS always has is, is sanctioning. And don't you see that, as a betrayal to the people of these countries?
Okay, good question, and fair question, and a difficult question. I agree partly what you've said, but my answer to that, you don't like your government, you don't want, and over so many years, you believe that your governments have betrayed the trust which has been replaced upon them. Okay, so we are bringing in the military and removing them. Is that the answer? Is military rule the answer in West Africa? I tell you something, I was born in Sierra Leone, even though I have a Nigerian heritage, but I was born in Sierra Leone. And you knew what happened in Sierra Leone recently. So the question I ask you, and ask my colleague, or ask anyone who's listening, okay, you believe that the government is failing its citizens. So the answer is men in boots, gun-toting men flaunting the streets of Freetown or Burkina Faso or Niger or Guinea or Mali. Is that the answer? It's a complex, I understand that. It's a difficult question, I understand that. So what do we do? And again, in a way, many of the citizens or commentators are probably right. And that's why I initially said probably it's a difficult question, and it's a fair question. What do you do when the AU or ECOWAS or one of the regional blocs fail to understand the needs of its people? Then this is what you get. Unfortunately, this is the consequences of some of what I call the failures of our institutional or regional organizations. I agree with that argument. I completely concede. But the question I ask myself, okay, your regional organizations have probably failed you. Okay, so the answer is military men in boots, gun-toting soldiers walking the streets of our capital. Is that the answer? Yeah. And you name me one military regime over the last so many years in West Africa that have actually succeeded in providing the answers for the people.
There's none. And that's very true. Yeah. There's absolutely none. But at the same time, the democratic regimes haven't done better either. And so we can go back and forth, with the argument. Exactly. Because military rule, boots on ground, guns, yes, might sound scary. But elections have also failed. Democracy has also failed these people. Ali Bongo was in power for a million years. I mean, none of it has worked in the favor of these people. And so if they decide that they want to support something drastic, it may not make sense, but you would understand where they're coming from, because the betrayal of a military coup is almost no different from the betrayal of a stolen election.
And just to piggyback off what my colleague has just said, at the time when the Niger coup happened, we saw clips of the Nigerians looking very excited, some of them looking really excited to have the military take over. So I think the question I want to ask, flowing from what he's explained so far, would be, what then is democracy? If we can prove, I'm not saying, and I'm not speaking up for military rule or holding brief for the military, But if the citizens decide that they have tried democracy and it's not working, and now they want the military rule, if as advocates of democracy, as advocates of democracy that ECOWAS, the regional bloc ECOWAS is, wouldn't it maybe be unfair that they wouldn't grant the people the right to choose how they want to be ruled? Would that not be going against the tenets of democracy?
No. What both of you, my colleagues in the fourth estate, have just explained, it's a complex, it's a difficult situation we find themselves. Again, there are a couple of things at play here. Firstly, when you join international organizations, irrespective of what your local community and local people want, you stick by the rules of the international community. That's the first thing. But again, you are right. What happens? I mean, your colleague, the male colleague, is absolutely right. When you look at what is happening in some of these countries, these are institutional coup d'etats against the people. So the AU has failed in that regard. Our regional sub-regional organization, our REX, have also failed in that regard. So the question is, what type of democratic structures do we need in West Africa, or probably in the whole of Africa? Maybe it's some of these coup d'etats that have happened in West Africa. Maybe it's about time that both the African Union and our REX will sit down and say something is going wrong, because you cannot be sanctioning illegal democratic regimes year after year, decade after decade, and don't expect the people to revolt. So, and when the people say we want military rule, who are you to say that you should not have military rule? I agree with that. I also understand that particular line of argument. But what I'm saying is, irrespective, when you join international organizations, you secede some of your powers, you secede some of your rights to that organization. And some of those rights include ensuring that you establish democratic institutions and rule in that particular country. So even if your country says, your people say, we want military rule, you must first stick with the rules and principles by the organizations which you have joined. Again, it's a complex, so I agree. And so maybe it is about time now for the African Union and our regional economic communities to sit back and say, hang on, what is going on here? Maybe this is the time that we need to come in and have a conversation with ourselves and with our people, and to see how to take it further.
Okay. So are we expecting to see any elections as well? Because we know that there had been promises about elections. Burkina Faso was meant to hold elections, I think, this summer. Niger had asked for 3 years. Mali was meant to hold elections in February, if I'm correct. So what do you think this would mean for the proposed elections?
Well, again, another good question. Mind you, most of those statements by the military juntas came as a result of pressures from ECOWAS and the African Union, and even partly from the United Nations. So they were saying, okay, hang on, we will have a democratic transition into a democracy. So we'll give ourselves 1 year, 2 years, or whatever time they give themselves. Now that they have removed themselves from the bloc, what stops them from staying forever, quote unquote? I don't see anything stopping them. So will there be democratic elections in the next 1 year, 2 years, or even 3 years, according to the initial timetable they've given, which in some cases have even failed? Now, what stops them? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing stops them from continuing ad infinitum. And that is a challenge ECOWAS and the African Union actually have. That what can we do to encourage these states back into the fold, back into a conversation? And that's why I initially said, I see the removal of themselves from the bloc as political brinkmanship. They want the sanctions to be removed. They want a conversation with ECOWAS and with the African Union, and to say, okay, where are we right now? Let's have a healthy conversation and see how we can transition to democratic rule. I suspect, I'm predicting, that ECOWAS will not allow them to leave the fold just like that, because it has a lot of implications, traveling implications, because right now, as West Africans, we all have free movement of goods, services, people, and information. We're all free movement. That will seriously impede that type of thing that we have. So I suspect that these 3 countries have said among themselves, let's leave, and then we'll force them to the negotiating table.
Yeah, but I also want to quickly mention, something, or maybe I'll ask my final question this morning. It's starting from your views on respecting the laws of, regional blocs and these groups when you join them. I feel like the challenge here is that the country that is meant to be leading the idea of democracy, the United States, doesn't respect international law. It has never respected international law from the United Nations or any other body. It currently is disrespecting international law, and it does it anytime it feels like. It is like a comparison between international law and their rules-based order, which is whatever they like, whatever their friends like, or their friendly countries like. That's what happens. It has nothing to do with international law, and they would disrespect international law anytime that they want it. So how then do you expect smaller countries to then respect international law when the United States disrespects it and ignores it at its convenience anytime? Look at what's currently happening in Gaza. They disrespect the United Nations, anytime that they want to. So there is that aspect that the country who's meant to be leading doesn't seem to be even doing the right thing. In fact, they are completely disrespecting it. So there's that. And then I also want you to respond to those narratives about how the whole thing played out, the influence of the West and the influence of other regional bodies and other world countries, Russia and China, comparing, of course, and how these things played out with these coups that happened, that made it maybe also a difficult thing to solve by ECOWAS.
Okay, you've asked me two different questions, and let me start by the world, the country which we think we see as controlling the world order. I have had that argument before, and maybe it's a good argument. I don't know that, because the question we have to ask ourselves: should we live by the rules and the examples of the United States or the West? Are they the ones controlling our countries? Don't we know what we want for ourselves? So even though it is arguable, it's an argument that can be made that the West, particularly the United States, keep regularly violating its own rules-based order. I understand that argument as well. But so what? So because one country that considers itself the leader of the free world, or leader of the democratic world, violates the rules-based order in which we have come to know after the Second World War, so we should similarly violate the rules that make our own people comfortable? Is that an argument somebody can make to me? I refuse and I reject that argument. Not because somebody is doing something wrong, particularly as West Africans, that we should also go the same way. That's the first argument. Now, when you look at other players within the confluence of West Africa, we should know that the benefactor of these particular incidences all across West Africa is probably Russia. I am not holding a brief for or against the Russians, but very clearly, countries like France and the West don't like what is happening in the West, in our West African background. Take, for example, Niger. You know how the French economy was benefiting tremendously from the resources of Niger. And so the booting out of the Western powers from Burkina Faso, particularly France, from Burkina Faso and particularly and Niger also, they don't like it. We understand that. But I ask you, and I ask all those other people who say, oh, the Chinese are coming in, the Russians are coming in. Are they better than the West? Are they better than the French? So one has to be very, very careful. We as Africans, we as West Africans need to take the destiny in our own hands. We need to understand what we want. Unfortunately, rather unfortunately, we as Africans don't even understand, don't know what we want as a people. And we, from government after government, regime after regime, this is not particularly against a particular regime. Take the provision of light and water. I was in Mali many, many years ago, and the lights went off. And a Frenchman was standing at the back of me and says, goodness me, the lights has gone off again. And he said, since independence, you guys have not been able to provide basic lights and water for your people. What is going on? So we as Africans, we as West Africans have failed ourselves from country after country. And so the inclusion of other foreign powers, whether they're Chinese. I mean, the Chinese influence in Africa, for example, is terrible. Yes, they're building bridges, they're building airports. How many people are benefiting from it? So even in the involvement of the Russians, recently you might know that the Russians have stepped into Burkina Faso and they've sent 100 of their people to protect the presidency of Burkina Faso.
They're sending food as well. They're sending wheat, if I recall correctly. I think they sent them 25,000 tons of wheat some days ago. It's just a lot that's happening. But like you've mentioned, West Africa, we as Africans have failed ourselves. And when that has happened, of course, we expect that the West will capitalize on that. Dr. Ogwande, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time with us this morning. And we wish our siblings in Burkina Faso, Mali, and the other country, what's the third one now? Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, I beg your pardon. We wish them all the best. We hope that this is resolved amicably between these three countries and the ECOWAS. Thank you for your time with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Yes, it's been quite the conversation looking at some of the effects that the pulling out of ECOWAS will have on these countries and what the next steps are. We don't know. We can't say what they are. We're just going to have to find out. But if you're just joining us, let's share a quick recap of the conversations we've had this morning.
Yes, we did, of course, just get off a conversation in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, all quit ECOWAS regional bloc.
And yes, we also have called on President Tinubu to return, a very passionate call made there on which way Nigeria is, whether he will answer it or not, we can't quite say.
Sylvester Romani Jr.'s body buried in Delta State, a really sad story there we brought to you also.
Heartbreaking indeed. But that's not all. We have more coming this morning. Let's share with you what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, Dave Umahi debunks alleged procurement violations.
And AFCON 2023 updates as the Super Eagles continue to go further.
And as we do every morning, we bring you the newspapers which come up next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's time for us to find out what big stories are on the front pages of the newspapers this morning. Joining us today to analyze these big stories is public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon. Good morning. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Good morning.
Good
to be
Thanks
here.
for joining us.
All right. Yeah. Let's get to the papers this morning and see what our first paper is saying. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, kidnapping epidemic, tracking device shortage hindering police probes, according to sources. Death of tracking devices causes delays in investigations. Arrest of abductors, says investigators. NDLEA declares beauty queen wanted, nabs Brazil returnee. 40 billion naira local government allocations diverted by governors, according to Serap. Oshun Prince detained after US-based prof's murder. That story. Naira manufacturers plan general price hike. At the top of the paper, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger yet to exit formally, according to ECOWAS. Federal government appoints 6 governors to minimum wage panel. IRS demands Achimungu's tax returns after lavish birthday. Too many stories to look at, but I'm hoping that we'd have time to look at 2 stories there. The exit of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, or the unofficial exit of these 3 countries from ECOWAS, as well as Oshun Prince detained after US-based prof's murder. I don't know if you've seen the story yet.
Yes.
So, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Please, I'd like you to react to both of them.
Let's start with the ECOWAS story. And I think majorly they are technically out of ECOWAS because they are presently on suspension, the 3 countries. So when you talk about exit, it's a strategic way of calling for attention. Oh, you have suspended me. Okay, I'm no longer interested. So that could, because if you look at their decision, there was a part of it that says, oh, we are ready to also have further talks. So strategically, if you look at it as a communications person, you know that it's a way of calling attention that, oh, you can't leave us out of ECOWAS. So we're going to exit ourselves, and perhaps that will lead to further conversations. And there have been conversations around the importance of ECOWAS since it was established in 1975 and all of that. And the major issue has been, if you actually read the charter that created ECOWAS, one of the most important part of it is economic development of the region. And the economic development of every region is actually read through the faces of the people, the citizens of those regions. So a lot of people may want to argue beyond security intervention that what has it actually done to make the life of people better. The essence is if we come together as one, we have the capacity to build trade, we have the capacity to actually work on our currencies to be more powerful, we have the ability to actually get attention from other foreign organizations. But if you look at it over the years, it's been, we are building capacity to borrow, not the capacity to actually throw our weight behind some sensitive international discussion. For example, majority of some of these presidents, they invite them to UN, they invite them to even UN Security Council. They don't have a seat there. They just go there to watch. The essence of their going there most of the time is to be able to talk at the sideline to get loans for their country. So if you ask me really, it has been about loan, not really about economic development.
It's very painful, very, very painful to hear. So, I mean, there's a general notion that ECOWAS has failed itself and failed its member states.
Yes, there's a notion from us, not people in government, from some people who have an understanding of how a regional bloc could actually muster power and throw its weight around in the international community. I will say that we have not done enough, because at every point that you see our leaders gather in this international fora, the conversation has always been intervention. And the conversation should be, what do we have? The resource we have. How can we actually use the resource we have to negotiate for more power in terms of decision? If you are not seated on the seat, you don't have a say. And it's a biblical principle that extends to our political life, that the lender will always be a servant to the borrower. So when the borrower will always be a servant to the lender. So when you have this kind of mindset that at every point in time, you go out to get money, cap in hand, then they continue to control you. Yeah. For instance, now, we should not be talking about, no matter how difficult a lot of people think, my currency should not be contesting with your currency. As it were, the value of my currency should not be determined by your currency. When are we going to have this conversation? That anytime the dollar goes up, everybody is suffering. Toothpaste. The last time I bought was 2 months ago, and I got it was 700 from the mall that I bought it. And by the time I got there, the day before yesterday, it's 1,800 naira per one.
A particular biscuit brand I usually buy for 700. Yesterday, I wanted to buy it, and I picked it up. They told me it was 2,008. Where I flung the thing, I threw it away because
these are the conversations that regional blocs should be having. For instance, Nigeria is about the second or the third largest producer of cocoa. That's apart from Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire is the largest producer, but none of this country gets to decide how much cocoa is sold in the international market. Yeah. These are the conversations. We have these resources. We do not have, until this military takeover, Niger could not decide the price of its, what's the name of this resource they have in abundance. So these are the conversations that people like us, who have the privilege of understanding international politics and communication, think we should be having. But the people in power who benefit in one way or the other may not be serious enough to have this conversation. But the truth is that as Africans, we do know that we cannot continue like this.
All right, quickly on the Oshun Prince story.
Okay, it's a sad story from what we heard. The man came around and in a way of bidding him farewell, a shot was accidentally actually shot at him, and that led to the crisis we have. And you begin to ask yourself, if the essence of our African culture should actually not be taken to a point of crime, because the way we are looking at all of these things now, we will begin to read religious meaning to it. But there's nothing religious about accidental discharge when police kill people. So there's also nothing religious about this one. It's just people not careful. And before you know it now, I will not be surprised if there are complications and deliberacy in all of this. So that's why we are calling on the police in Osun State to, because there was this story of the hotel case in Ife. A big man was involved in the killing of, according to the declaration and the investigation of the police. And we got to a point that the story was almost swept under the carpet. It took an intervention of a local journalist in Ibadan to unearth what was happening. And the guy was arrested without a cause. for unearthing what was about to be swept under the carpet. So we do not want that situation to happen again in the same Osho state.
Like, how are you asked to shoot bullets, farewell, salutation bullets,
Bullets, yeah, so to
and
say.
then it was pointed at his leg? Like, how does the security, I can't wrap my mind around how that's a mistake.
Nobody can. In reality, nobody can. And that's why I said that we have begun to suspect some act of complicity. In all of this, we've begun to suspect some act of deliberacy
Foul
in all
play
of
in
this,
it, right.
foul play and all of this. So, and all eyes on the police at this moment. We do not want a story of, oh, we don't know what happened because now it's now linked to the palace. Everybody must be questioned. Those who need to be arrested must be arrested. And at the end of the day, we want to see justice, at least to discourage other people who may want to have some similar distance in the future.
Hopefully we have this. I mean, the fact that it's a foreigner, we should treat Nigerian citizens the same way when, people also lose their lives.
Yeah.
But mistakes happen, and I know that there's going to be a proper investigation. I hope that there will be, but mistakes happen. Guns, go off, unexpectedly. Maybe the policeman also wasn't trained. But I think the core problem here is, why is there a policeman in, guarding a civilian? That for me is the core problem here, because if he was in his barracks,
I think
he
the
was doing
argument
his
would be that
police
he's a
work.
traditional ruler, and traditional rulers are probably entitled
Yes.
to-
No, I personally don't agree, and because it's a Nigerian thing.
Yeah.
Anybody can have police for hire, traditional ruler or big man or rich man. Anybody can have police for hire, and so that for me is the core problem. If the policeman wasn't there in the first place, if Nigeria didn't have this problem of national policemen as like parties,
I don't
parts.
agree, because traditional rulers are part of government in their own level, so, or in their own right. I think the traditional rulers can be entitled to some level of police protection.
No,
let's hear from him
the issue is not even whether we have a police attached to a traditional ruler. The question is over 200 million people. When you place the number of police we have side by side with the population of your country, then there's a disaster already. Now, from this percentage, that's why you see that every time that there's a new Inspector General of Police, there's always a directive that all the police with
attached to VIPs have
come
been
back
recalled.
home. Because now, at every point in time, we've always complained about shortage of men. About 400,000 police personnel is actually not enough to police us as a people. So if we have as high as 150 personnel attached to VIP, then there's a crisis in our community. So it's a larger picture, not just about the traditional ruler. It's a larger picture of how we should run our community. And these are the questions that we keep asking government.
All right.
President Muhammadu Buhari said he was going to do 20,000 employment for police personnel. And I know that when President Tinubu was campaigning, he made mention of one number that almost generated uproar in the community. So we are believing that there should be more personnel in the police.
All right, let's quickly go to the Tribune this morning, see what we can find over there. The stories are pretty much similar across the papers. But of course, it says that ECOWAS shaky as Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso quit. Their withdrawal notification not yet received, the body says. Committee on National Minimum Wage to be inaugurated on Tuesday. It also says, top of the screen, governors can't fund state police. Uzodimma is speaking about that. US-based lecturer accidentally shot in Osun. Again, gunmen kill 8 in Benue. How National Assembly has been violating Constitution since 1999 fails to inaugurate constitutionally approved committee 25 years later. Some stories that you might pick on. Experts differ on Naira exchange rate and floating. CBN's key economic projections still premature, say analysts. And also Customs CG unveils strategies for meeting 2024 revenue target. I think we can just pick on 2 as quickly as possible. I think maybe the CBN's key economic projections still premature, and also the Committee on National Minimum Wage to be inaugurated on Tuesday. What are your thoughts on these 2 stories?
Okay, you cannot continue to operate what I call an MMM economy and expect that your nation will grow. MMM is more money mystery, because the government believes, anytime you see a government that believes that, oh, we need more money, usually that government ends in failure. That government pushes its economy into inflation. That government pushes its people into abject poverty. And that's what we've continued to have. In fact, APC, one of the reasons why I have deferred, why I have had this economic reservation about their party is when they came on board and they said, oh, we needed more money, more revenue. How do you get the revenue? The issue is that once a government is not rendering service, the essence of making money, see, let me tell you, the essence of government is to give the community money and take it back legally. How do you take it back? You give them service, then they pay for those services, and you take the money back. Yeah. You don't put the burden of taxation on a malnourished citizen. So what we have in Nigeria today is that our people are becoming poorer because of their purchasing power that is going down by the day. So when government now says, oh, I want to make more money, or when government centers its economic policy around generating more money, if you see the custom stories now, it's about getting more money. Today, I was driving 2 weeks ago, and I got stopped in a place called Ore in Ondo State. And the custom guy collected my paper and said, oh, you didn't clear it very well. I said, what happened? He was calculating with the current dollar reality.
Oh, wow.
Because they actually collect their money in dollar. So if they collect $25 now, today, $25 can be how much tomorrow? You don't know. So he was going up, saying all manner. I was forced to introduce myself to him. I said, young man, you cannot stop me like this. I bought this vehicle a month ago, and this is what dollar was saying at that point. So you cannot continue to build your economy on more money, putting the people in abject poverty. What do you expect the government to have done? Provide service. In Lagos today, 2 key areas where government is not providing service that will have made Lagos state government richer than what they are is housing and transportation. Moving 23 million people is a business. You can't leave it in the hands of charlatans. But what do? They provide a few buses and they go to shout hallelujah. No, there must be deliberate investment. There must be deliberate investment in housing. One of the ways to take traffic out of Lagos and improve on your economic indices is actually to invest in housing. For instance, if I work here and the government has an estate very close to this place, they don't need to collect money directly from me. Oh, New Central, how many staff do you have? We have 20. They deal directly with your organization. Your organization removes it from your salary, pays directly to them. Then you can stroll from wherever the estate is around here, stroll to the office. That means you will not drive 2 hours to this place. By doing that, traffic has been taken out. Because most of the vehicles driving in Lagos today, you see them, they have 2 people, 1 person inside of them. These are big men. How do you discourage them from driving? Make them live very close to where they work. But that's what they did in Switzerland. But you know what happens? Government in Nigeria will continue to think that, oh, we need more money, and we do not want to provide service. It is satanic. And I think I began to hear it in 1996, when people began to come out to say, oh, government does not have business in business. And the question I keep asking them, who regulates? In India today, when you get to mall, as a student with your ID card, there's a price difference for you. Who regulates?
We tried that in Nigeria for
Who regulates? Yeah. Nobody regulates. We don't have a price regulatory body. Before you get here, I want to get this cup, sir. You say it's 10 naira. Before I turn my back, you say it's 20 naira. What's the problem? You say it's dollar. You get to my 12th market to buy tomato, it's dollar. So there must be a deliberate investment into your economy so that you take the lead. For instance, there must be a price limit if government, this NNPC filling station that you just see around, I have been talking about it for how many years? Yeah. That every local government should have an NNPC station. That was when government was running it. What that will do is that we will be able to regulate price. If NNPC is selling for 188 naira, you want to avoid the queue, you know you go and buy it for 120 naira, and everybody just aligns with that. But Nigerian government, lazy in thinking, not strategic in action, and at the end of the day, you want to put the burden of taxation on the people. I'm already hungry. Nobody should talk about any economic policy that will make me pay more. What we should be talking about is provide service, give me electricity, and I'm ready to pay more. Give me transportation, I will pay more. Give me housing, I will pay more. And it's a way of returning your money to you.
It honestly should not be rocket science. I don't know why we find it so difficult. I think we can squeeze in one more paper before we go, Olive.
Let's head over to the next paper. Let's see what the final paper for this morning is, and the Daily Trust newspaper. ECOWAS opts for negotiation as Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso quit Why we pulled out of regional bloc. Action will weaken group according to diplomat. Article urges Nigeria to tighten security. War on Gaza, children paying highest price. Tinubu to inaugurate minimum wage committee on Tuesday. How security operatives nabbed Nabiha's killer, according to the police. Explosion kills 6 in Borno. I think let's start with Tinubu to inaugurate minimum wage committee on Tuesday. Do you have is that news that excites you about the minimum wage?
Of course, because we've driven our economy to more money for everyone, and a few percentage of us that have the privilege of being in the civil service, we smile home again. But the reality is that the money in your hand depreciates whenever the government is not deliberate in its economic policy. And we need to continue to hammer in this. Nobody is richer with more money in the current reality. We are in essence even poorer with more money. The reality is staring us in the eye like this, that if we do not work on our economy, if we do not control our greed, because if all of these things are not controlled, then the money coming into Nigeria, for instance, from the basic unit of our revenue sources, the money from oil, the money from the basic exportation we do, timber, cocoa, and all of that, if they are transparently managed, we will have every cause to shout hallelujah. But the reality is that money has become our master and greed has become our God, and everybody seems to be running after that. In fact, before I continue to even blame the politician, it is in our system, the system that makes the politician is also a corrupt system. I say it again that our leadership recruitment process is a huge issue, because if you look at it from the time a man campaigns for office and the time he becomes whatever he becomes, he has gone through the waters of corruption. Yeah. So it's imagine your leader is in a circumstance that has actually dent his image with corruption. So when he becomes your leader, he's also looking for how to gain money. I don't know whether it was last Monday I was telling you that a particular governor in the Southwest spent 2.5 something billion naira on the day of election to get votes, 5,000 naira per vote. So the man becomes your leader now, and he goes haywire. He's looking for how to pay the money. So nothing is extremely exciting about more money in the system, about more money to the politician, more money to the civil servant, or even more money to an ordinary citizens like us. What should be our focus of conversation is that our naira should not be falling. What should give us a point of concern is, what are we going to do to move from a consuming nation to a producing nation?
But we've been having this conversation for years.
We could not do anything because government has to take the lead. Nobody submits his destiny into the hand of private sectors and moves forward. We've continued to have it. Today, are we not happy that there's a refinery working in Nigeria? But who owns the refinery? This is the conversation we are having. Government is saying we do not have business in business. People like us who understand how these things will work is saying government needs to regulate. And the best way to regulate is to have business. Have concern in business. Regulate people by being part of it. For instance, there's Nigeria Air. Nigeria Air, are you hearing anything about it? All the billions gone under the drain. So government must be deliberate. Now we say, oh, private sector run things better. It's an insult that private sector runs things better than government, who has the power to regulate, who has the access to the money, who has the understanding of the environment. Suddenly the private sector runs things better.
The argument has always been, government creates an enabling environment for these things to thrive.
Or that there's some form of a merger between the government and the private sector.
Now, I'm going to cite maybe 2 or 3 nations. I love the transportation system in the UK. Before it became what it is today, government has to deliberately set in. You cannot just say you are creating the environment. What are you even using to create the environment? Because investors, capitalists are interested in taking advantage of anything you submit into their hand. Go to Dubai today. Their tourism is what gives them at least a certain percentage of their earnings. Who runs it? Government needs to be interested to create this enabling environment we are talking. If government does not make deliberate investment, for instance, the first thing you think about is that no economy can work without electricity. So that means that government needs to make deliberate investment in that.
I mean,
are you going to do it through the private sector?
Yes, we can find a way to stabilize this naira and stop it from falling. At least let's revert to what it was when they got into power. And if they can solve the problem of electricity, I think that a huge load will be taken off Nigerians because every administration has made very lofty promises about electricity but not been able to meet it. And how do you expect investors to come into the country?
Should I shock you, ma'am?
Talk to me.
Nobody today will be talking about, and I became a victim, and I was telling somebody that all through February, I'll be trekking. That's my decision. Anywhere I'm going, I'm trekking because since January 8th, I had a meeting somewhere. I'll be going every day. I spent 122,000 naira on fuel. So I know I'm trekking by February. Now, nobody will be concerned about how much fuel is saying if electricity is working, because it will take a lot of burden from you. That means you will not get home and be thinking about generator. So when you build an economy that is totally dependent on fuel, whenever you increase the price of fuel, it affects the living essence of your people. Across the West African region, if you travel around, you see that Nigeria is not the worst in terms of the price of petrol. But the difference is that, number one, most of these people don't have the deposit we have. Number two, they are not entirely dependent on fuel. That's why whenever they move fuel from 180 to 200, everybody is protesting in the community. Fix electricity. And I said, communities with agri potential and entrepreneurship skill, remove them from this national grid because your own national grid, GREED, will not allow your national grid to work.
That's a fantastic way to wrap it up. Dr. Ojo, it's always a pleasure
grid.
to have you. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So many conversations. We do this every day. Remember, you can join us on social media at News Central TV to tweet and share your thoughts with us on any of the stories that we've looked at on the front page of the paper. We'll go on a break. When we return from the break, we have more stories we're looking at this morning. Stay with us.
The Minister of Works, Engineer Dave Umahi, has threatened legal action against the group, Tracka, budget service delivery promotion platform, for accusing his ministry of paying the sum of 8.6 billion naira to a microfinance bank for the execution of 58 projects between 4 states between June and December 2023. Umahi issued the threat while briefing newsmen yesterday, stating that the group's allegation, which suggests that the government now uses microfinance banks to carry out projects, was misinforming the public.
Recall that Tracka, budget service delivery promotion platform, had exposed how the Federal Ministry of Works paid 9.3 billion naira to FIMS Microfinance Bank Limited in violation of the 2007 procurement law. According to Tracka, some of these projects include the payment of 1.4 billion naira in September 2023 for the construction of Yaba Yangoje Road in the Federal Capital Territory, 1.2 billion naira in October 2023 for the rehabilitation of a 2-kilometer road from Oriawo Boroboro Oke Medina School of Science Road in Atiba, Oyo State.
And another 1.2 billion naira in October 2023 for the rehabilitation of the Kosovo Away Junction in Oyo East local government area in Oyo State, and 1.2 billion naira also between August and November 2023 for the rehabilitation of the Ejule Otupo Road in Benue State, to mention a few. In a statement yesterday, he said what Umahi, of course, let's show you what Dave Umahi said. It says the jobs were never done by me, payments were not made by me, and even if it was me, if the jobs were done and certificate generated, deployed to the platform, and it was appropriated and money was released against the project, then they have no right to question where it was paid. Now, to further this conversation, we're bringing in Mukhtar Modibo. He's the Secretary General, Follow the Money International. Good morning, Mr. Modibo. Great to have you on the program.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay. I mean, it's always interesting news when things like this are revealed across the Nigerian political space. But I want you to, quickly let's just get your thoughts on David Umahi's response. He says there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Contracts were given out or were awarded, and if these people decide to, receive their payment through microfinance banks, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Does he have a point there?
He don't. In whatever jurisprudence or whatever law that is governing it, he don't. I mean, we have a public procurement law that's stated specifically in section 16, subsection 1, 3, and 4, right? I don't think he has every right. I don't want to speak plenty English here. You don't have any right to do whatsoever, what he's claiming. And what we have as civil society organization is to correct government and put government where it is, observe what they are doing, report those particular things, and that's what Tracka did. If you look at what the section said, it says all bidding in addition to requirement contained in any stipulation or whatever should possess the necessary document, professionality, financial capability, people that will do this particular thing, and so on and so forth. And if you look at the microfinance bank in question, it was incorporated in 2009. And this microfinance bank is to do things around, their mission is to do microfinance issues of business and services. Why are they being awarded contracts to construct road and rehabilitate some level of road? I don't think he has any point here.
All right. There are some of the arguments that he's brought up. He says that, and I'm going to read from here. He says that some of these projects have been dated as far back as June, and some of the arguments that have been brought up was that he was not there at the time. Do you think that this argument holds water as well?
The government is a continuous process, and immediately he comes on board, there is a handover note. All he needed to do was to go through those handover notes and do what he's supposed to do. Today, if you ask who is the Minister of Works, you will call his name as the Minister of Works, right? If there is some level of feel to the contract that was awarded and what have you, who paid in the money? If you see something going wrong, will you want to join the wagon of people that are doing something wrong, or you will want to correct it? So it doesn't even hold water. I think what he is ought to do as the current Minister of Works is to investigate what happened, right? And see what he can do to correct that from happening. Because government is a continuous process. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is he is not supposed to make that payment to a microfinance bank. That is not, if he is saying that microfinance bank is not the bank that conducted or did that contract, he's not supposed to pay money into the account of that particular microfinance bank, because their mandate is to provide microfinance services, not construction. So he should not join the wagon of doing something bad, but join the wagon of correcting things, because he is the one at the helm of affairs presently.
Yeah, but now, is he trying to, is his explanation trying to make it sound like the people who carried out the contracts were paid through the microfinance bank? Is that what he's trying to say here? Yeah, of course, it's Tracka saying a totally different thing.
Pretty much, I think that's what he's trying to do. But at least before you have the capability of accessing a contract in government, you should possess some level of requirement that is laid down. And that's why I mentioned section 16, subsection 6, paragraph 1, 3, and 4. If you look at what the section says, it says you must have some level of financial capability, equipment, and other relevant infrastructure. You should have adequate personnel to do this obligation of the procurement. So that means the company that conducts that particular contract, or the company that have done that, must have some level of accounts. They must possess some level of financial capability before they can be even given this thing. And they must have that professional and technical qualification to carry out. These are part of where you must be an incorporated company. You must have an account. You must have some board of trustees and what have you. So I don't think that holds water. There is no company that will give another company to access to collect money of a contract they have done. I don't think that holds water. I don't think it's something we should be having a conversation on. If you go to eat food today in a restaurant, then the restaurant will now tell you, pay in the money to another person, not the restaurant. I don't think that's even something to talk about.
Also, let's talk about BudgIT's rights to be able to probe into this. I'm just going to read this out. Part of, in a bid to dismiss Tracka BudgIT's claim as misleading, asserting that the organization lacks authority to probe where a contractor places the funds from a finished road project. So let's talk about Tracka BudgIT's rights to be able to probe this, because from what we're seeing, he's asserting that they do not have the right to probe this.
I don't know where he's reading that from, but having the right to prove it is enshrined in the public procurement laws. And then this is what Tracka and other organizations from PPDC, Follow the Money, have been doing, tracking and giving recommendations for how things should be done. You know, the one good thing about this thing is government laid down these rules. And then what we are particularly doing is to just tell government, this is what you have in your public procurement law, 2007, that says this is what you should do. We're not creating something new, or Tracka is not creating something new. So saying Tracka does not have the right, that also does not hold any water, because I think we have freedom of information law, and just so you know, Nigeria is signing up to the Open Government Partnership, where governance is meant to be open in a.
Hello, Mr. Modibo, are you there with us?
Freedom of information.
All right, please go ahead.
Ask question about procurement of government, not it's limiting us to that conversation of arms and what have you. But you know, for him to say Tracka does not have the right, I don't think that holds water as well. The FOI is there. The Open Government Partnership that Nigeria has signed up is also there. And what Open Government Partnership does is to bring co-creation between government, citizen, and then civil society community, just so that we will put check and balance in governance.
Let's talk about what would have been a much better approach to his response, or a much better way he should have responded to this.
Yeah, so for me, I think the best approach to give to this was to call on or respond to Tracka's FOI later, right? Giving them the breakdown of what happened, and also institute a committee within the ministry to supervise or look at what really transpired, and then inform the public that, oh, this is what was found, but this is what we actually did, so that the public will know. This conversation is a public thing. The project have owners. You know, owners are the people living within that particular community. And he is a public servant. All he needed to do was to explain to the public what really happened on this particular construction, or what happened to the construction or rehabilitation that was done. Or if he is thinking that this is not, the contract happened when he was not in office, I think what he ought to have done was to investigate, right? And then come back to the public with the full details of really what happened. So the first thing I will say is to respond to the freedom of information law that Tracka has sent to his office, not put some sort of allegation and things. The public needs to be informed, and that's what Tracka is trying to do.
Yeah. Now, does this also, you know, give more air, more oxygen to the conversation surrounding procurement across the country? Beta Edu's case, if you remember, created a lot of conversations, you know, and it was an opportunity for Nigerians to once again see that, you know, when we talk about corruption in government, it's not just, you know, where governors, you know, or local government chairmen or and the likes are accused of corruption. In the public service, it's everywhere. So is this once again exposing how much, the possibility rather, of how much stealing is going on across Nigeria? And that's one thing. And another thing is, when they say things like, does it matter how, you know, the payment was made, as long as the contract was done, you know, mind your business. What does that even mean? Mr. Modibo, we may have lost, struggling a little bit with the connection to you. I hope that you can hear us. Of course, I hope that you can hear us and quickly get back to us. Okay, if you can hear us, kindly go ahead, if you heard my question.
All right. So the thing is, you know, when tracking, you cannot track what you particularly don't know. what we're doing particularly is what we have seen now. This has shown that there is a problem with the system or some level of orientation, right? Dave Umahi is a former governor, and all these things ought not to happen because, I mean, he has some level of experience running a state for a particular period of time, and now being a minister, being a legislator before being a minister. So I think this lack of orientation, should I say lack of orientation, or we need to go back to check our laws or to see whether or not the people that are occupying offices in the country sort of understand the laws that was provided by government to govern how procurement, how process of governance are being carried out. Because if you look at from better issue to now this particular issue, it's all issues of procurement, issues of contract, and issues of contracting in a way. And this law is not a law that is even a very old law. This is a law of an act of 2007. I mean, if you come in, the first thing that needs to be done was to go through what are the procedures, what are the code of conduct of that particular place you're governing, or that particular place you are manning for some particular period of time. And I feel these people should understand that whatever you do is a legacy you're leaving, right? It's not about just doing the contract, it's about following the procedures of the contract, right? So I think we all need to ask questions as citizens, and the people in government need to do what they said they are going to do, or what is enshrined in the law for them to do. It will go a long way in allowing us to run a race and win the race together of making Nigeria a place to be.
All right. There's so much that will be explored regarding this conversation. Let's see how it goes. He's, of course, come out to, some would say, maybe kick the air against Tracka and BudgIT. He's come out with defenses. He's even said that this is serving as a distraction regarding his work that he's doing concerning advancing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government. But we'll keep following up with this story. Mr. Modibo, it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now we move away from here to find out the updates with AFCON. We have Favor Itwa on standby. Good morning, Favors. Good to have you. How was the weekend for you? Which would you say was the most shocking win or the most exciting win for you? All right. We're going to have Favor join us shortly, but I think I'll start with you, Osalge. Which would you say was the most exciting win for you? Which was the most?
Definitely Super Eagles game. No other game matters that much.
Speaking of the tweets that got Nigerians talking, the tweet of the Lions sleeping tonight.
Yeah.
I lost it when I saw that tweet. It was a very creative. I think the social media handling is the.
Yeah, absolutely. But I enjoyed the banter, before the game and after the game. But it set us up, because now the haters that we have across the country has increased.
We have now not just in Cameroon, we have in Ghana.
We have everywhere. And so if we don't play well, against Angola,
the way they will team up with us and drag us. Let's have Favor join us. Good morning, Favor Itwa. First of all, congratulations to the Super Eagles for flying high, and in this case, leaving the lion in the jungle to roar. How was that for you? And what other wins would you say were the most exciting and the most shocking wins or losses for you in this past weekend?
All right, good morning to you, Osalge and Olive. Interestingly, it was a fantastic time in Abidjan for Super Eagles and for Nigeria fans after, of course, they went all the way to defeat the indomitable Lions of Cameroon, a perennial rival when it comes to the world of football. Shown several, they can actually, do a lot to Nigeria, but the
probably upset with Nigeria. That's why this internet is not connecting properly. Favor, are you still here with us?
Yes.
Okay, we're struggling with Favor. I think one of the most painful losses would be the match between Guinea and Equatorial Guinea, especially because of how very last minute. Some would argue that Equatorial Guinea played a much better game. And it was at the very last minute, that they lost the game. You could see the tears, the anguish in on the faces of the players. Yeah. They were crying real tears. I think that would have been
that's football.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Yes.
And I haven't been following all the games. I only watch Super Eagles games, to be honest. But it's football, and it will come with tears. It would come. There's disappointments that happen with football. Yes, some of them are extra dramatic. When you feel like you've almost won the game, and then in the last 2-3 minutes,
I think it was in
changes.
the 98 minutes that they scored.
And those things happen, and it might just be your flight back home, and the end of competition for you. It happens. It's a very, very emotional sport. People put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and that's why it always turns out that way. Not just the players, also the fans back at home, because you are going there to fight for your country. And this AFCON for me is one of the most exciting that we've had in a while. Favor, I think we have him back. Welcome back, Favor. Favor, if you can hear us, go ahead. We lost the connection with you for a second. Well, still a struggle there, but of course, it's trying to expand on the conversations concerning AFCON. Super Eagles, of course, going to be taking on Angola, I believe, next. And Egypt, I think, were kicked out yesterday. There's a bit more that has happened in the last couple of days. Favor, if you can hear us, kindly go ahead. Let's know what the situation is like over there. What have been the most exciting moments so far? And what are moments that we must, stay glued to our TV screens for?
All right, thank you very much. For the excitement so far, I think I would have to talk about the tournament being a tournament for the underdogs. I mean, it's been a series of shocking results, including the one that happened last night that saw, of course, Egypt being knocked out of the tournament. No thanks to DR Congo, who, of course, came into the party. And for the first time in the tournament, we saw a game finishing via penalties. I mean, 18 penalties were taken. And at the end of the day, it was DR Congo who won the penalty shootout 8-7. And of course, the opportunity for Mohamed Salah to win the AFCON trophy has also eluded him at the moment. Of course, he's in Liverpool and not, of course, at the African Cup of Nations. The 7-time champion, be the most successful team in the tournament, being knocked out. It shows that the tournament indeed is full of surprises. Today we get to see a big one, the biggest round of 16 clash involving Ivory Coast and Senegal at the Yamoussoukro. Yamoussoukro is, of course, one of the capitals of Ivory Coast, the political capital, and that's where, of course, Ivory Coast will be taking on Senegal. That's a big one. It will, of course, be a second chance for the host nation, and for Senegal being the defending champions, they want to, of course, get into the next round, which is the quarterfinals. So that's arguably the biggest fixture at the moment when it comes to the round of 16. We expect to see fireworks, and we'll also be traveling from here this morning to Yamoussoukro venue for that game.
Okay, well, talk about the Super Eagles a little bit more. Is there still any criticism as to, how they're delivering their wins, or is there a lot more that Jose Peseiro needs to do, in order to see that we go far, in this competition? Well, the connection, of course, is still struggling this morning. Favor Itwa, if you can hear us, I would like that you speak a little bit more about the Super Eagles and their chances. They've had a fantastic run so far, I believe. They had a great win over the weekend. Lookman, of course, on the score sheet twice. Victor Osimhen with the assist. It's been a very interesting run. How much do you see us? How far do you see us going with this one? Are we still possible winners of AFCON 2024?
For Joe, or rather Osaoge, talking about the chance of Super Eagles winning the tournament, I think it gets brighter by the day. We've seen how they've shown character. We've also seen how they've taken each game that comes by. And looking at the routes to the finals of the tournament, they get to play Angola. Yes, on paper, Angola looks like a team that shouldn't give the team a problem. But of course, there are no small teams in African football. I think the Super Eagles at the moment would look at the game as a game they need to do everything possible to get to the semi-finals. At the moment, the teams that might actually stop the Eagles from winning the tournament, maybe just Senegal or Ivory Coast or maybe Morocco. But at the moment, I don't think anything would stop the Nigeria national team, considering how Nigeria have taken each game. So going to win the trophy will not be an issue or a problem for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. I'm also tipping them to get the trophy at the moment. I mean, before now, I remember telling you the game against Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria would definitely win. Against Cameroon, I did also predict a win against them, not because, of course, I'm a Nigerian, but because of how they've approached each game, considering least number of goals, also ensuring that whenever they score, they also, protect themselves. So it's been a fantastic run for them so far. But the only thing that might stop them from winning the trophy would be complacency. So if they can actually stop being complacent or take every team as a team that is serious, then I think they can get to the finals and, of course, win the trophy. At the moment, there are no issues of bonuses or...
They don't have a choice at this point. They have to get us to the finals because if they don't, the dragging will be epic. It will be phenomenal. So we're hoping that the Super Eagles get us to the final. They have asked their president, Tinubu, come to chair them physically at the AFCON games. I don't know how that will play out, but we are going to just wait and see.
Well, it will be fantastic to see. I mean, being an ECOWAS country and having to also see a president from the region of ECOWAS and also having large number of Nigerians staying in Cote d'Ivoire, it will be awesome to see the president in the finals. Meanwhile, the NFF gave Jose Peseiro, the coach of Super Eagles, a semi-final target. So if he gets to the semi-final, maybe they can actually tell him, take it one step further, and of course bring the trophy back home to Nigeria. And me, myself, I don't want to come back to Nigeria with the trophy. So you can imagine how it will be for New Central TV.
Yeah, semi-final target sounds very weak. I think the final would be a much better target, the trophy. All right. Thanks a lot, Favor Itwa. Always interested in hearing your perspective and, of course, getting these live updates from AFCON 2024, I believe, or 2023.
Oh, yeah, still in 2023 or something. Wow. Au revoir, Favor. Tu parles français? I hope your French has improved.
Oui.
Oui.
Oui. Au revoir.
We'll see you again.
Thank you for joining us on our first broadcast for the week. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Remember that the conversations continue on social media at New Central TV on all platforms. Absolutely. I am Olive MOD.
Yes, be a part of it. Tweet at us at New Central TV, like she just said. Share your thoughts with us on any of the conversations we've had this morning, from Dave Umahi to Sylvester Oromoni, and of course to the ECOWAS debacle with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning. I am Osaogi Ogbonwa.